And obviously, this is if we're talking about, if I'm writing this, I work on Istio and service mesh technology. If you read the SP 800-204 series, it's all about service mesh. And so, of course, there are many ways that you can implement those 5 policy checks. And let me be clear, all of those are, many of them are valid ways to do it that are good, right? And our recommendation is you need to do these 5 things. The tech infrastructure, like the service mesh, however, facilitates that very well. And this is something we've talked about at length in some of the other SPs, SP 800-204A and B in particular, we talk about. Or not talk about, but we talk about the idea of using the service mesh for a lot of these policy checks and similar. And we strongly believe this is a good and effective pattern for implementing those 5 policy checks that I just mentioned. The key idea is that, at runtime, the service mesh provides for that notion of identity. It also provides encryption, service identity. It provides that encryption in transit. It also does discovery and routing, which are important capabilities, but not maybe forefront when it comes to security. The other key property of the service mesh is that it acts as a policy enforcement point. Because we have an Envoy sidecar that's deployed next to every instance of every application, intercepting all network traffic in and out, we can use it as a policy enforcement point to enforce both of the types of checks that we want to do. We can use it to enforce service authentication and authorization. We can also use it to enforce end user authentication and authorization on behalf of the application. In 204B, we argue that this is a very effective mechanism. We argue, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, that it implements the notion of a security kernel, and that this is really a strong pattern to pursue in terms of building the ability for policy to be implemented on any application in your fleet, in a cross-cutting way. And then finally, of course, the service mesh provides operational telemetry and network resiliency. Of course, security is a trade-off between availability and security. So resiliency is part of security. And so the mesh capabilities there help mitigate many styles of attack like DDoSes and help keep applications resilient, as well as providing the data for you to understand what's going on. And so that actually segues into, so how do we achieve identity-based segmentation with the service mesh? For folks in the call here that are familiar with the service mesh already, there's no curveballs here, right? When the service mesh issues identities to every workload, it issues a SPIFFE identity, secure production identity framework for everyone. This is something that we've written about in SP 800-204A. Using that SPIFFE identity, we perform encryption in transit. And additionally, we provide the means to write service-to-service authorization policy. You can write that directly in something like an Istio configuration. You can delegate that out to systems like OPA or things like next-generation access control. End user authentication is supported with things like an external authorization provider in Envoy, which supports end user authentication and authorization, and can integrate with things like OIDC today to do authentication. And then authorization, again, can integrate with existing systems. There's less capability to express authorization in the service mesh today. We instead delegate out to a different system to render authorization verdicts, and Envoy enforces those verdicts. Something like OPA, for example, or Auth0, or a Keycloak or something like that.